Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Sam Dever Podcast, episode 32. In this episode, I speak with actor and life coach Brian Maierhofer. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Sam Dever Podcast, episode 32. In this episode, I speak with actor and life coach Brian Maierhofer. I met Brian here in Los Angeles, and I was really excited to have him on the podcast because I always have phenomenal conversations with him. He's very deep, very intellectual, very big on self-development and personal growth. And I really appreciated him coming on, and I'm telling you, it gets deep quick in this one, so hang on. And the book of the episode, since Joseph Campbell's name was mentioned during the podcast, I'm going to go with Joseph Campbell's book called The Power of Myth. He's written several others, but this is one of his big ones. He's really big on the hero's journey, mythology, and the stories we create that guide our lives. And this one really digs deep into religion and kind of how some cultures and societies came about, why they think the way they do. This is one I actually need to reread again. It's pretty dense, but it's really good. Again, that's Joseph Campbell's The Power of Myth. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Brian. Brian Maierhofer, welcome to the Sam Dever Podcast.
Happy to be here, man. Thanks for the invite.
Oh, dude, I remember when I started this podcast, you were one of the first people I thought in my mind as well. But I had started it, and then I got hurt, and then a long time went by, and then now I'm doing them on Zoom. But I have always had just spectacular conversations with you.
Likewise. Yeah, I felt that we clearly have a lot of similar interests. But I think it's your earnest desire and curiosity that has always stood out to me. Like that has felt very unique to you. And I've really appreciated that about you.
Oh, thanks a lot, man. And I've always appreciated that about you. And it was actually, I was at your place, I think it was in North Hollywood, for an acting rehearsal. And a bunch of us actors were together, and I look at your bookshelf. You know, I like books, so I'm looking like, hey, is that The Way of the Superior Man on your bookshelf right there? I thought I was the only one that knew about that book. And like, I started looking, wow, this guy's a deep dude. Reads lots of books. Have you always been a big book reader, intellectual type?
I have, yeah. It started off very much so with just pure fantasy. I remember the Redwall books. You remember Redwall?
Not as familiar, to be honest.
There were fantasy books and there were these medieval tales, but the main characters were always animals. So it was like a story of these, it was like a badger king, and, they were fighting other legions of the otters or the foxes or whatever, but it was always tied into these medieval tales. And I read maybe 20, 30 of those in elementary school. Was just a fiend. They were just candy to me. And then it was, Star Wars books, Harry Potter. It really was always fantasy. There's always just a touch of a magic in there for me. And when I need a little bit of magic in my life, I find myself going back to fantasy, which I'm reading a bit of fantasy right now. But, I think it was my early 20s when I first really started digging into more of the self-help, spiritually minded literature. And that was while I was in a wilderness therapy program when I was 19, 20 years old on Hawaii.
Whoa. Wilderness therapy?
Yeah. I was in a wilderness therapy. It was, what was it called? Oh man, it was called Pacific Quest, which now my grad school is called Pacifica. I just made that connection there. And another connection too, actually, one of my required reading right now in my grad program was actually one of the first books that I read in this wilderness therapy program that really sparked my interest in psychology and spirituality and also acting, mythology specifically. It's called The Hero with a Thousand Faces by Joseph Campbell.
Mm-hmm.
So I dropped out of school and I needed a little bit of help and support and guidance. And I went to an outward bound wilderness therapy program in Hawaii.
That had to have been an incredible experience.
It was unique. It was unique. And I have super fond memories looking back on it. I'm still kind of in touch with my therapist at the time from there. I mean, we're talking, 10 years ago. I'm coming up on 30. Mm-hmm. Last time I talked to her was probably 18 months ago, maybe a year ago. And I credit a big part of my foundation and my intellectual curiosity to my time there. It was also just the first chunk of my life that I experienced any semblance of sobriety, from the time I was, 13, 14 years old to 19, 20, when I pulled myself out of school and decided to get some more support.
Wow, it's amazing that you had the intuition and the awareness to be able to make that decision at that age too. It's a relatively younger age, you know what I mean? Like, for someone to make a decision like that.
I do, and you're not the first person that's said that. And I hear that echoed by a lot of folk when I tell them my story. And I'm not sure what it is, just like anything, there's probably two sides to that coin. I recognize that on some level. I'm sure that some of my perfectionism had something to do with it, or just excuse me, absolute pure fear that I was going to set my life on fire. And that, there were some, older family relatives or people that I'd seen that had gone down that path, and maybe just pure fear and like pure perfectionism drove me to that. But on the flip side, I also think that an earnest desire to do good and to live a healthy life is a part of it as well. And, if I wanted to take it even a step further, a step deeper, maybe there were some spiritual factors as well, or, as we were talking before we started recording, nature has its way, and, nature's a chord. There might've been some seeds that were planted there, from a deeper, more soulful place.
Right. And piggybacking off of that, it's like, I'm realizing too, like, when sometimes on decisions and everything, and, there's not a right time really for anything. Like, everyone says, well, you're going to do this at this age. You're going to do that at that age. Sometimes it happens earlier for people. Sometimes it happens way later. Like, I'm starting to figure that out. Like, it's nice to have those ideas and blueprints, but understand in your own life, things may happen quicker than you realize. Or the opposite. It may not happen for a while. I don't know if that makes any sense, but
no, it does. It does. I mean, because we want to think about these things linearly.
Right. Exactly.
Right? And chronologically in relation to age. And that's not necessarily the case, especially if you subscribe to the idea of soul or soul rebirth or soul asking to be here on some level, and more of the cyclical nature of time and of life. I mean, and that's where, that's where like I need to be mindful in regard to comparison, because I can look at where I'm at in my career and my finances, etc. But I've undergone a massive 10-year spiritual and emotional upheaval, and Alcoholics Anonymous and sobriety has been the primary foundation of that. And somebody else may have that experience from 50 to 60. After they've locked in some other areas of their life, but really start to learn those spiritual emotional lessons later. And for whatever reason, like, this has been my 10 years. I'm sure I'll have another 10, but you know what I mean? Like, there's no timetable, and it's not necessarily linear.
Wow, there's so many things I want to say out of that. Well, first of all, comparison is the thief of joy, like they say. And, reminds me too, we were talking on the last podcast, her name is Sarah Gabriella. We were talking about like past lives and being born. And I've talked about it with a few people, but yeah, it's like some people, if you do believe in that type of thing, they were put here on a mission, and the mission may happen way sooner than what it does for other people. It's interesting to think about.
Mm-hmm. It really is. Yeah. And there's many different words or labels or phrases that we, what's your mission? What's your fate? What's your destiny? Right. My personal favorite is personal myth, which is actually, it's like a Jungian, Carl Jung, he spoke at length about his personal myth. He felt like his life's, biggest quest was curating and uncovering his own personal myth and sharing it with the world.
I'm reading this book right now called The Breakthrough Experience by Dimitri DeMartini, something like that, but similar, like uncovering what that thing is. that thing
Yeah.
that your destiny, if you will, or your myth, whatever that is.
Yeah, your soul's contract.
Yeah.
Like your mythic identity.
See, and that's something I don't want to call it struggling with, but there's so much, I guess, distractions, for lack of a better word. Like, I could go do this or I could do that. Maybe I should do multiple things at once, but like I still has me begging, like, is there like one thing I should be doing? Like, should I say F it, for lack of a better term, to like all these other things I'm dabbling in and just go to that one thing? But it's like, how do you find that one thing? And I'm realizing the more like I meditate, the more that I get rid of distractions, the more that I look within, the more readings I do, the more like you feel like you get closer to that pulse of whatever that thing is. And maybe it's not one thing, maybe it is multiple things, but I feel it's in this life, in this society especially, it's very easy to get hooked into a lot of stuff that you may not even really want to be doing, but you think you want to do it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I do, and I also struggle with that, to be honest, because we live just in our culture. There's such a rhetoric of, you've got to follow your dream. You got to find your purpose. If you're not living your purpose, then what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't necessarily like fully agree with that. I think that like we all have our own version of what's in front of us, and a big part of this process is learning how to find depth and presence and being okay with whatever our version is, and we can find and create and redefine our own purpose. Purpose doesn't have to be this grand mission in life where you're helping the world, etc. I can go to a 9-to-5 job and make some money and do my thing and come back to a dog, a wife, myself, whatever. But I find purpose in my version of my life, and I find depth and meaning in it. And it doesn't have to be anything extraordinary. And I can redefine my own bullseye, what my own definition of heroship is, or purpose and meaning, and learn how to seep into that and find contentment in it.
I love that. And truthfully, the whole, depending on what the 9-to-5 is, but it's that whole life that I used to think was, oh, you don't ever want to have that, the dog, the kids, the wife, and all that. That appeals more to me than it ever has in my whole entire life. And I'm like, wow, like, some of these things that I thought were so important, and it's not that I don't still want to do some of them, whether it's a project or whatever it is in the realms of, we're both artists in the realms of artistry. It's like, it's kind of an empty road sometimes to me, in my opinion. Like, it's like, there's some of the most simplest things and joys and pleasures in life are literally the most simplest joys and things and pleasures in life right in front of you. And I want to share with you, I think I've said on the podcast before, his name's Michael Malice. He's big on, have you read much of Albert Camus?
No.
Okay, I got a book for Myth of Sisyphus. And I truthfully, I'll be honest, I have not finished it. It's one of those where you're like, what? Like, basically, man, there is no meaning to life. He's going with the perspective, there's no true meaning to this. But Michael Malice always plays off of that. He's like, yes, there's no meaning. But life is like, if you're a painter, life is like a blank canvas, and you can paint it whatever you want. So similar to what you were saying, you find that purpose, you find that meaning, you can make whatever meaning you want out of this thing. But I agree with you too. It's not that there's just one clear cut, this is the meaning of life and that's all there is. It's like, well, maybe for someone, but maybe for someone else, it's this, Exactly.
And it can then, that mentality can leave people longing constantly, or feeling like where they're at and what they're doing and who they're with is not and will never be enough. Because we have been indoctrinated into this belief that when we do find our purpose or our mission or whatever, it's going to feel a certain way. So because people go through life without feeling whatever that certain way is, then they then thus, like, what they're doing is not their purpose, is not their meaning. So they're always on a quest for that next thing, but really what you're chasing is feeling.
Yeah. Pleasure seeking, really.
Gratification,
Yeah. And one concept, definitely attachment, of course, is something I've definitely been learning more and more, like detachment rather. And just how desire, like the Buddha said, like desire really does lead to suffering. And yeah, I think you just explained it beautifully. And also just the whole, I say this but it really is about being present. Like it's such a simple thing, but I catch myself constantly just still getting hyped up about future events and future things instead of just sitting and settling into where I'm at right now and what's going on right now. And being able to enjoy whoever I'm with or whatever I'm doing to the fullest. Because if I'm just always thinking about this future that doesn't exist and the past that doesn't exist, I'm never really living this life. Like I'm just existing pretty much. Like I'm not fully there. I don't know. Have you ever found troubles with that, being present?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I can be a fairly heady dude. A fairly intellectual, heady dude. I'm an analyzer. So my girlfriend always calls me the analyzer. I'm a thinker. I'm an analyzer. And that's an intelligence that is necessary, and in order to learn from the mistakes of the past and plan for the future, that is an important intelligence, that linear-based analytical thinking. But when we speak on presence and creation and steeping into this moment, I drive to lean into the intelligence of the body, which is entirely different, right? Like our body, on one level, there are so many, especially depth psychologists, that believe that, our unconscious sits in our body. Our traumas, our experiences, you've heard of that book, The Body Keeps the Score, or Waking the Tiger. So much of our healing takes place within our body, and our body is designed to heal itself. It has its own rhythm and its own natural intelligence. You look at our circadian rhythms, like it's all designed in a manner in accordance with nature. And if I can disconnect from the analytical mind, the rational mind, the linear mind, and plug into the intelligence of my body, nature's intelligence, and find some way where I can bridge the gap between the two, or learn how to at least translate from one or the other, I'm giving myself a real shot at like unlocking whatever it is that like is available to me in any given moment. So if I find myself struggling to be present, I know that's a problem that's existing up here. So if the problem's existing in my head, the solution sits in my body. Right? So breath, focusing on the breath, my feeling tone, sitting in my chair, I feel my feet in my shoes, the tactile nature, of how I feel, like what, like simple body scans. There are so many tools, but there's an intelligence that exists within the body that I believe is in accordance with nature and nature's will for us, that our Western Judeo-Christian culture has placed zero emphasis on. Zero emphasis.
I completely agree with that. And it's funny you brought that up, because a lot of the books I'm reading right now talk of that exact principle you're speaking of. Like I've always been big on the subconscious mind. Like I really give that credit to even coming to LA. Like years ago, I just say, want to go to the West Coast. I want to be here, and like just seeing it and visualizing it and words of affirmation. It is amazing too. And then you bringing in about the health, like, yeah, there's zero, like, especially in America, like that's a whole other discussion, America and health. But there's so much, I guess you could call it ancient knowledge or secrets, whatever it is, that we haven't even begun to tap into, I think, that maybe past civilizations millennia ago knew about. But us as, technology has been a great thing, but at the same time, I think we can rely on things too much and get too cocky, get too arrogant. But it's like we're missing out on the the greatest technology, which is us,
Mhm.
our bodies, like you said, even going through a healing myself. It is just incredible what the body is capable of, not only going through, but getting back. It's insane.
100%. You know, and I've had some experiences with some plant medicine, some entheogenics, some psychedelics that have really reiterated and sort of validated that point to me. You know, when you eat something like psilocybin and are able to plug in and seep into the body, and you can feel that mechanism at work, which is really powerful. But yeah, just to speak on a little bit, you know, it's so interesting to think and to really understand why we think the way that we do. Right. So we spoke on a little bit just Western culture, Judeo-Christian mentality and thinking, and how it's this linear based, you know, pull up your bootstrap, go get it type of attitude, moving forward, etc. You know, and looking back at philosophy, at one point there's a reference point, and it's called the Cartesian Split. And it's referring to Rene, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, Descartes, D-E-S, right? The philosopher.
Oh, it sounds familiar, actually.
Yeah, Rene Descartes. And he was the first philosopher that really separated the mind from the spirit, or the mind from the body. And he placed great emphasis on the mind over the body. And he wrote, I can't remember what it's called right now, but it's he wrote this amazing manuscript, and it's basically about critical thinking and how to use logic in this is like in the 1600s, how to use your logic and critical thinking skills to move through life. And that was really one of the birth points of Western thinking, of the way that we think now, which our culture is so engulfed in, for better or worse. You know, for my money, it's a little bit worse. But it can really be traced back to that Cartesian split. He was one of the first philosophers that separated the mind from the spirit.
You've already dropped Waking Tiger, I think you named, was a book. And this one, when I go back to edit and listen to this, I'm going to be writing all this down.
Yeah.
You're one of those people, when you tell me, hey, have you read this? I'm like, no. You'll be like, yeah, I'm picking it up.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I think about that a lot, you know, because you're talking about other cultures that don't think the way that we do. Our culture is very individualistic. A lot of Eastern cultures and Eastern philosophies, it's very communal. There's not as much of a separation between the individual and the community. It's all one. One individual is sick, the community's sick. You know, communal-based thinking. We live in a very individualistic culture, and I don't think humans are designed to live that way. And I think that our minds have been, especially at this point, you know, from where it started and when it started, I don't know. But at this point, our minds have been hijacked by media, big pharma, all these industries, food industry, etc., to, you know, prey off of our neurochemicals and our dopamine and our gratification, and prey off of this consumerist mentality of more, this Western mentality of more, accumulate, attack, conquer, get, acquire. And it's people sitting, you know, metaphorically, it's people sitting in a big fucking rooms, twirling their chairs, you know, making money off of hijacking our brains. And they have teams and teams of psychologists that are on whatever, that are designing whatever their product or their tech is, in order to make them as dopaminergic as possible. So we continue chasing. We chase that pleasure. We chase that gratification. But the same part of the brain that's responsible for dopamine, for pleasure, is also the same part of the brain that's responsible for pain. And it becomes a cyclical, you know, self-fulfilling deal. So a big part of the way I'm thinking about things now is how do I unplug my mind from the dopamine systems that have been put in place that I am and everyone else has fallen victim to on some level, and how do I replace it with serotonin and oxytocin, these other neurotransmitters and chemicals that are also bioavailable to us, but they don't come through things. They come through relationships. They come through service. They come through purpose. They come through wonder and nature and curiosity and living a life based off fulfillment. And it's a slow build that doesn't go up and down. You're not chasing, it's not a dog chasing its tail like the dopamine cycles are.
Ooh, that might be the promo clip right there. That's a lot of things to unpack there. Yeah. Well, and I'll add to what you were saying, like got to go do this, acquire this, and do that, and go get more. Well, what they don't tell you is, hey, guess what? You're going to die. And then what are you going to do with all that? I don't know have you ever listened to Naval Ravikant at all?
No. Tell me about it.
I'm going to send you after this. I'm going to send you, man, this guy changed he's like they call him like the philosophical angel investor from Silicon Valley. He's made his money. He's good. But like he was on Rogan. He's been on, he doesn't do many podcasts, but Ferris and Rogan he did. And I've seen his name. Said something so, what'd you say?
Sorry, I've seen his name now that you mention it.
Yeah. A couple quick things out of what you just said that I think you really hit the nail on that he preaches. He's really big on you like taking care of your finances so you don't have to worry about your finances. But he's like, once you've taken care of your finances, you're done. Like, he's like, the trap is these people that become millionaires and they just have to keep going. He's like, you're just going to keep making as much money as possible, then you're dead. It's over. Like life, he calls it a one-player game. Like, you're doing these things thinking that you're leading for something. You're leaving this huge legacy, but it's like, no, you are it. Like, your experience is your experience, and it's only you. So again, the mind, and again, the chasing the dopamine. And I really like how you said our minds have been hijacked to think you're really being successful. I remember times I thought I was quote unquote successful because I was just so quote unquote productive and I was getting things done. But was I happy? No, not at all. And was I really getting anything done? What? Social media people told me, hey man, you're really working out there. Like, and that was about it.
I'm pushing paper across my desk. I'm getting shit done, Like,
yeah. And one quick thing about back to Naval that he said that you remind me of, he's like, the people that truly win in life are the ones that know when to quit. The ones that do get that money. They do get that relationship. They do get that dream job. And they realize, I'm good. Like, and I'm finding that in my own life lately. Those are the traps, because we live in this world too where everyone thinks you just have so many options out there, whether it's relationships or jobs, anything. They want to make it think like you got to be this, like, always keep your options open, always get to the better. And I'm all about self-improvement. I know you are too, but I have realized that's also a trap within itself.
Yep.
Because some of the most beautiful people and opportunities are right in front of you. Right in front of you. But if you're too busy, for lack of a better term, on your bullshit, like I have been before, like thinking like, well, this is okay, but I think I can better myself doing this. So it's a trap. It's an endless cycle.
It is, and it's the mechanism that we're used to using, in our brain and neurochemically. We're used to using the mechanism of next. We're not used to using the mechanism of enough. It has to be built. It's built through practice. It's literally a practice, just like, like a gratitude practice is a practice. Not something you do once, or I'm going to be more grateful. Like you're getting in shape. You're getting your mind in shape. You're getting your emotional body in shape. You got to go to the gym. You got to solidify these grooves. It's repetition. It's exposure. Like it's a new mechanism. You have to build up that, those neural pathways, and the brain's malleable. It's plastic, the synaptic pruning, like the brain can change, but you have to build it.
I think that's brilliant what you just said, because you're right. I myself have realized lately, whether it's through this podcast, through books I read, whatever things I'm doing to open my mind and expand, I realize, and I've talked with a friend, like, knowledge without application is useless. Like, I can go memorize as many theories and as things as I want, but am I actually applying this to my life? When someone gives me a criticism or a critique, am I actually listening to it and thinking like, that's a good point. Maybe I could improve in this, and this, instead of like getting an ego with it. Or, there's so many, and I'm really glad you said that, because it is a practice. It is a repetition, and you do have to practice being grateful. You really do. And one thing I've been practicing is, I didn't realize how much negative self-speak was in my mind. Like, I may think I was a real positive person, but which is when it comes to abundance or attraction, like some things I realized I haven't been attracting because I'm cutting that off by speaking negatively on certain things that may open me up to those worlds, if that makes any sense. It goes deep, man. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. It's like, it goes really, really deep. And we were talking in the pre-show room with psychology and the mind. I mean, it's crazy how deep this stuff goes.
That little mantra that you just said, I already forgot the mantra because now I'm thinking about what it reminded me of, but in a similar vein, to piggyback off of what we've been talking about, right, is, success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. And we get to define what fulfillment is. I'm really big on redefining. So I was a coach. I was a life coach for a long time. Still am. I'm actually just reinvesting in that business right now. And my company's name was Hero Redefined. And I would use a lot of my content was off of Joseph Campbell's The Hero Journey and that 12-stage monomyth, and trying to uncover and live and curate our own personal myth, and looking at the great stories and how they define hero worship and what these actually stages within the story, what they represent psychologically and spiritually. Each one is a spiritual and psychological mind stone. It's a metaphor within the story. But anyway, so I'm big on redefining the idea of hero for ourselves, redefining the idea of purpose, redefining the idea of fulfillment. These are just labels and concepts that we can make our own. And how can I redefine my own conception of what it means to be the hero of my journey, to be the hero in my life? How am I the hero in my own personal myth? And what does that look like? And what are characteristics and attributes that make up the hero? And how can I redefine those for something that fit my version of who I am? We don't have to subscribe to the versions of the stories. We can redefine it and make it ours. And that's empowering.
Yeah, you've definitely, now I know what the book of the episode's going to be. Have you read The Power of Myth by Joseph Campbell?
I have, yeah. I've got it sitting here.
I got it right here. I'm like, I don't have the hero. I know the other one you're talking about, but he said, I think it's in The Power of Myth. He talks about how people idolize, these figures over time, whether it's, and I'm not saying they shouldn't be like someone like a Christ. I'm not putting him down by any means. It's people want to be the hero, quote unquote, right? Because the hero's journey looks glorious, but he broke down. He's like, the story of the knight who slayed the dragon, or Jesus going on the cross. It was brutal. It was extremely brutal. They went through freaking hell, but it's glorious after it happened, and we're telling the story of it.
Right.
Everyone wants to be and this is a lesson I learned. It's funny, like 10 years ago, all I wanted was to be famous, was to be rich, was to be like known by people for whatever art form or whatever. Now it's the exact opposite. Like, it's like I could give two shits. Even doing this podcast, I don't, whether we got 2 people listening to us or we get 200, it doesn't matter to me anymore. It's all about doing something you enjoy and getting the experience and what it is to you.
Yes. So you've redefined it.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Your own sense of meaning in your pursuits.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about the pursuit as opposed to the result. And the fruits of the pursuit.
Yeah.
And the fruits of the enjoyment and the fulfillment that you gain from the pursuit. And that's a lot of what I've been thinking about recently too, man. I moved out here 8.5 years ago to be a famous actor. I moved out here to be a movie star. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to delude myself. Again, where that motivation came from, I think that there was a light and a dark to that coin as well. Looking for some fix, looking for some validation, looking to be recognized, looking to be enough. Also a pursuit of the art, an enjoyment of the art, a love for story and for myth, and being a part of, stories on a mass scale. And so much of the human experience is ineffable. I think it can only be communicated and translated through story, through metaphor. you know, and wanting to be a part of that too, but like really have had to ask myself these big questions, you know, like life's about choices, and like, do I want to be famous? Do I want to be able to walk down the street? Do I want to live a life of pure raw temptation all the time? You know, like, and I don't know where I'm at with my acting career right now, you know, like last year was pretty slow for me, but the year before that, you know, I did the biggest job that I've done to date, which was super fucking rad, and it was a great experience, and I had a nice week on set, and that was a blast. And I don't know if I find as much joy from it anymore, and I don't know where my motives are, and the quiet, the simple, the sustainable feels more attractive to me, as you were sort of speaking on.
And I'll add on to, you are a phenomenal actor, by the way. Like, seeing your work, you're really, and this is great because we haven't talked like any acting the entire time, and this is just beautiful. This has been beautiful so far. So, the one thing I will say about you're one of those people. We were on a hike once, a couple others as well, but you were definitely one of them that really showed me and explained to me that this is a business out here with acting. And I'll never forget, man, you telling me, I'll keep it vague, but like, you know, just telling me basically like your plan. Like, you had this like straight out plan, like year 1, year 2, year 3. You knew you're the one that told me about character types. Like, you got to know your type, and like how you had, I think you even sent me an email once showing me like what you sent to agents and stuff. And I'm like, I just remember thinking like, yo, this dude has done his homework. Yeah. Like you really opened my eyes to like, but again, that showed me another side to you. It's like, look, Brian's one of those guys, like, he takes his shit seriously, whether he's doing acting, whether he's doing school, psychology, self-development, whatever it may be. You're one of those people that, you know, you take yourself very seriously, and I really respect and admire that about you.
I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate that. Hopefully not too seriously.
You know what I mean? Like,
no, I'm playing with you.
Yeah.
I'm playing with you. Yeah, man. And the reality of that business, it's not pretty. It's ugly in a lot of ways. I find the ideological necessity really distasteful. You know, if you want to be in this business, you have to believe and think a certain way.
I second that.
I find that pretty distasteful. And again, choices, man. Choices. What do I want? You know, who do I want to be? You know, long term, and what is important to me? You know, having some security and some structure, and having a family, and you know, financials, like, that's important to me. You know, I remember when I first moved out here, one of my very first acting classes, wonderful teacher, probably my favorite teacher that I've ever studied with in my 8.5 years out here. And in my first or second class, he's speaking, and he says, you know, if there's anything else you can do in this world and be happy, do it. And he's like, that's not hyperbole. Like, I'm not fucking joking. Like, leave the business and go do that. Yeah. If you're one of the unlucky few that can't do anything else, take a seat. Let's get to work.
Yeah.
And even like here, like, that's not me. It's not. Never has been, like, never will be. You know, it's just not. I find happiness elsewhere. I have gifts elsewhere. And even just, you know, super recently, I was in an acting class, and there was a newer gentleman who just came in. He had just moved here from Iowa like 3 months ago, and he came in, he was introducing himself to the class, and this teacher, John Markland, another, you know, super smart guy, he asked this kid, he said, hey, you know, if you never make any money acting, would you still want to do it? And the kid said yes. I mean, what else is he going to say? He's on the spot. He's been in LA for 3 months, whatever. And I'm like, man, if John would ask me that question, like, my answer is no. Like, right now, my answer is no. I wouldn't do it. Not because I place, you know, too much value on money, but like, there are things in this life that I want, and money's a part of it. There's some necessity there. You know, it's just value. It's not money, it's just value. And life's about, you know, prioritizing your values.
I really admire that. And I'll add on to that. speaking from my own experience, and you've gone way farther along than I have out here in the acting thing. But, I was starting to, before the pandemic hit, and then I got hurt, but I was starting to go there. Okay, got this training in, got the reel, got the website, got the pro IMDb. Now it's time to, as I crack the knuckles, time to message agents and managers. And, that's a whole other thing. It's like, and again, I say this, and I know you, as well as I, have a lot of friends out here that give it everything in the bit. And I got the utmost respect for all of them. I hope they all land everything that they can. But I realized with me, man, I don't like getting a self-tape that's due in 45 minutes that I got to go crank out right now. Like, I kind of had a schedule going.
I know what you mean.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't want a life. And again, like, you just like, and I've heard a similar thing from other people too. Like, if you don't love this, if you don't absolutely love it, it's like, yeah, if you can go be happier somewhere else. Like, I'm just at a point now, like, look, I'm open. Like, if I get involved in something, I get involved. But in terms of quote unquote chasing and pursuing, at this point, I'm just like, yeah, I don't know how much I enjoy that other side of it. Like, I enjoy actually doing it, like the actual, like being on stage and being in a film, but all the other stuff that goes with it, I just don't really want to do that. That's just me being honest with myself. Like,
for sure. I mean, I literally just turned down an audition, and I felt shitty about it because I know my agent isn't going to be that happy about it. But like, I read who's involved in the project. I read the sides, and it was due on Sunday, but I knew how much work it was going to take. And I was just like, I don't want to do this. And it was it was like a 30-year-old, like fire and brimstone preacher who's like secretly the leader of this like white supremacist group. For this, like, it's like cool content, like, but like, I don't
want to go down that route for the next 3 days.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, I'm good. Like, I got other plans before Thursday. Like, I'm straight, and I don't know. I'm sure my agent's going to feel a certain type of way about it, but also like, that's just not my business, man. Like, I need to, start, taking ownership of some of these choices. And if that means I'm closing the door on that part of my life, and it made me think too, as I was getting ready for this podcast and I was taking a shower, and I was, on some level, if I were to close the door on acting, I've learned so many things, but if I really had to sum up just the last 10 years, 8 years, just like, the biggest thing that it's taught me is that, like, I actually prefer being myself. I like who I am. I like being myself. Like, that feels good for me. I want to be more of me. I want to be more of Brian Maierhofer. I don't really feel the need to like put on some other skin, and when and a lot of my favorite work and the stuff that I'm done, I mean, obviously, at least in my process, I start with me. I just bring myself to whatever it is. I bring my own emotional well. Like, I don't like personally, I'm not like big on like a characterization or like, no, like I try and bring like as raw of my essence to whatever. If there's an adjustment that I need to make, obviously, in mannerisms or voice, or like I can make little adjustments, but like I just want more of me in every role. Just give me me, and there's something about the idea of like no longer acting that feels freeing to me, because when you're in the biz, it can feel so restrictive. I can't go on vacation at certain times. Like, like I got a bunch of tattoos. I'm about to get a bunch more. I can't get tattooed. That was like my belief, like I have to look a certain way. Like all my tape and my reps, they all want me as like pretty boy next door, clean cut. Like, that's not who I am. You know what I mean? Like, I was rocking a little mullet a couple months ago. Like, that's just not who I am. Like, I want to be more expressive and have fun and be creative with who I am and like seep into that. And if taking ownership of that leads to me actually like landing some gigs and whatever, then like great. But like, I just was starting to feel so restricted, and feeling, sitting down with reps and being like, hey, I'm thinking about changing my look. Like, I got a couple tattoos. Like, I rock piercings normally. Like, I'm going to grow my hair out. Like, I like the must. And they're like, oh, but like all your tape is like this boy next door, this like cute, you know, fresh face, whatever. And I'm like, that's not me. And if you don't want to work with me, then like, I don't know. I'm just done. I'm just done like acquiescing to these fucking gatekeepers that like, what, like, I don't know. We're all in this shit together, man.
That's beautiful, man. That's really beautiful, man, because it really does, like, you are enough. Like, you, everyone listening, like, what, like, you yourself are enough. You don't have to pretend to be anyone you don't want to be. And especially in this business, the acting business, it's a lot of people pretending to be stuff they ain't.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, and that was the thing. So I was at the Golden Globes 3 years ago, maybe. Correction, I was working the Golden Globes. I don't want to make this sound like I'm, you know, some fucking walking the red carpet here.
Right.
I was working the Golden Globes, and the one thing that stood out to me, I mean, I was, you know, feet away from, you know, just, you know, you name it, you know, Brad Pitt, Margot Robbie, just all these just very, very successful people in this field. And the one thing that I felt was a common theme from all these people, you know, Hanks, is like they all just had this aura that felt so unique to who they were. And I don't know how much of that is just, oh, I've seen these people on screen and I have ideas of who they are, and the media and they have a public image that sort of doubled down on that, or if they, you know, some of them just felt like, man, this person just feels so authentically themselves, and they've just learned how to bring that out to the forefront in everything that they do and every piece that they do. And it's that essence, that soulful essence that they sell, and that's what's gotten them where they are. You know, it just felt powerful. You know, it just felt powerful. I don't know how else to really explain it. That's kind of the best I can do with it.
Yeah, well, and also not retracting what I said earlier, but like there's a lot of people faking it. But on the flip side, I'm sure we know a lot of the same people too. Like there are just a lot of awesome original people out here, and I want to say about this is what I realized about Los Angeles. Whether I'm pursuing acting or any of that or not, what I love about this place and a lot of the people I've come across, you being one of them, everyone's pursuing different stuff, whether it's acting, whether it's art, media, whatever it is. But I feel like there's just like this common mentality of acceptance for those of us that are just want to be us, unlike any other place. I haven't been too many other places, but I have been some, and I feel like that's what I like about here. I like that people can come here, whether you're going to fake it or not fake it.
Yeah.
You know, it's okay. Like, you know, I just picture myself. I just kind of like being near the pulse, if that makes sense. I like being near it, but I don't want to be necessarily of it.
Yeah. For better or worse, you can be whoever you want to be.
Right.
Right. You can come out here, you change your name, you get a stage name, you can build whoever it is that you want to be, as authentic or as inauthentic as that is. You know, this is the place to do that.
Yeah.
How about our boy, I don't know if you remember Benjamin Levy. He was in class with us. He was from Guatemala. He would always do that boxing thing where he would strap the thing to his head with the string and he would hit the ball. Do you remember him?
Maybe because you were there before I was there. Maybe was he gone by the time I got there?
He wasn't in our class.
Oh, okay.
He would often sit in on our class, and he came to rehearsal a couple times.
Okay.
He's killing it. He did a full season on this Fox show that he
really.
Kristen Bell has a new show coming out on Netflix. Have you seen the billboard for it? It's like a thriller. It's out on Friday, actually, and he's one of the series regulars in that.
Wow.
He's like killing it. And I remember running into him at the gym, and he's super, super fucking great dude. Nice dude, talented, but also the perfect thing just landed in his lap because he was an MMA fighter. And he was also like a trainer for it, you know, and the Fox role that he did, it was to play like a young Hispanic MMA fighter. And it was just, you know, it was just like perfect. And he had the talent and the preparation, you know, obviously. It was oh my gosh, who's Ron Howard's producing partner? Brian Grazer produced it.
Oh, whoa. Oh yeah, wow.
Yeah, his final read was with Brian Grazer. You know, and he was just like, you know, it didn't like have like great rep, whatever, but just, you know, just got the job and it set him off. And, you know, he's now got this thing with Kristen Bell. And it's funny because I saw this like paparazzi photo of like Kristen Bell, like on like Daily Mail or something, like at Runyon Canyon or Griffith Park. And she was with him. It was like them two on a hike. And I was like, my boy Ben, dude, like, not in like a weird, he has a girlfriend, she's married, but like whatever, they were hanging out, they were working together, you know?
Yeah.
Like, so
by rehearsing.
you know, like that happens, man. You know, so many people that I know that are killing it, or they're in class and 6 months later I see them on a billboard.
Absolutely. And it's awesome. It's incredible to see.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think you really tapped into something too. And I really am excited for a lot of fellow actors and artists to listen to this, because I think you have some really good grounded perspective, man. Like an acting teacher said this too. And I thought it was some of the best life advice I had ever heard. When he landed his first thing that really got him going out here decades ago, he said he was just living his life out here. He wasn't like, it's a fine line, right? Because you got to put in effort for things, but you can't like, if I don't get this, my life's over at the same time. That desire we're talking about. He said he literally was eating at his favorite restaurant somewhere, and he was a very classically trained actor, and he was just living his life, not worrying, going to whatever he did. And then like he was just out and about eating at his favorite restaurant with a good buddy, ran into blah, blah casting director or whatever. Like, hey, you know what, man? Good seeing you. Like, hey, you know, you should read for this.
You should, yeah.
He reads for it. He gets the part. Probably set him up pretty nice. But he just told us at the end. He goes, "Look, the best actors I know are the ones that live the most interesting lives." I never forgot that. He's like, they read the most books. They go to museums. They go to concerts. They have friends. They have social groups. Like they do what they love to do. And you, by becoming an interesting person, and some of these people you name, like Tom Hanks, Brad Pitt, it made me think, it's like, yeah, some of these people that are the biggest celeb, they actually are some of the most interesting people you'll probably ever meet. They're them to the fullest.
Compelling.
So it really gave me a perspective on you and I, like talking, like I told this, you know, I recently entered a relationship lately, and I realized one thing, and I said, like, I said, you know, I do have these, I think I'll always have artistic dreams and visions and projects I'll want to do, no matter what it is. I just creative by heart. But here's what I realized. I was in this mentality that you got to sacrifice it all. You have to give it all up to try to get this over here. But I'm like, no, you don't. You don't have to give up anything. It's like, I want a personal life. I want a family life. I want a family one day. But to do that, you've got to pay attention to that, and you've got to put effort into that. Like you're saying about the repetition, like you have to practice that. Mm-hmm. You know, I don't want to be one of these people that maybe I just give it my quote unquote all and sacrifice it all for just someone just to say to me one day, hey, good job, man. And then it's on to the next person that does something. You know what I mean?
No, for sure.
It's a trap.
Sure. It's a trap, you know, because you get there and then you want to do everything to stay there.
Exactly.
You want to do everything to get the next thing. And there's always, you know, some version of it. You know, I have a mentor of mine who at one point, he still is, but at one point he was really close with Robert Downey Jr.
Oh, wow.
And right before Downey he tells me the story of right before Downey did Iron Man. Downey, I mean, he's a movie star. He's nominated for Oscars or whatever, but he's just having a complete meltdown because he's not getting box office stuff. Mm-hmm. You know, it's whatever version of it. You could be nominated for an Oscar, but you're having a meltdown because you're not getting an offer from Marvel.
Really quick, I think I've told this story before, but Matt Damon, when he won the Oscar, when him and Affleck won the Oscars for writing Good Will Hunting, mm-hmm. I believe that's what they won it for. He was 27 years old. he tells, and obviously he's had an extremely successful career since then, but he said it was the best thing that ever happened to him, not because he won the Oscar, like, look at me, because he said he won that Oscar at age 27. He was in his Hollywood apartment with his girlfriend at the time, went to bed. He was like watching highlights on the TV, and it was like 2 a.m. And he said the Oscar's just sitting on his coffee table looking at him. And he said he just kind of looked, this is what some actors spend their entire career trying to get, and like will sacrifice anything for that hunk of metal that's just sitting on my coffee table. And he said it was a great thing because he realized he didn't care about that shit anymore after that moment. Like anything he made was because he wanted to make it. Yeah. And he wanted to do it. He wasn't chasing this glory. Like, your career is a failure if you're never nominated or don't win this thing. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Like you fulfill your greatest desire, your ultimate dream, is accomplished. And then it's like, well, now what?
Yeah.
I'm 27, now what?
Yeah.
Like, it's, I would imagine that's a mind fuck. Hopefully I'll be lucky enough to, get that same mind fuck. We'll see if that's a lesson that's in the cards for me. That's the way I think about things sometimes, where I'm like, oh man, like none of this shit is really permanent. None of it's that fulfilling, whatever, I made $100 million. Like, it's not that fulfilling, and I'll end up dissatisfied anyways, but man, that'd be a great lesson to learn. You know what I mean? Like, I would love to be fortunate enough to learn some of these lessons, to know that having, a really successful career isn't going to fix it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. We'll see if that lesson is in the cards for me.
Well, and that's why I'm really, what I hope happens is you're like, I'm letting go of this acting thing. And then 2 years later, you do win the Oscar. And like, oh, on the Sam Dever podcast, he said this, and this, and now look at him, it's like,
right. Yeah.
And we're almost to the end here. You got a couple more minutes?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because shoot, man, I could talk to you for 10 hours straight. This has been an experience, dude. No joke. Like, and I've had a lot of great podcasts. They've all been great. But this one, like, I really feel like from the second we hit record, it was like this freaking rhythm, man. Like, it was this just flow of consciousness, which I wouldn't have expected anything less. But this has been a beautiful conversation. And going just real quick, like, I'm just realizing more and more about personal development and growth, and just keeping yourself accountable. Like, I'm like really accountable, not putting myself down, but like, oh, Sam, like you shouldn't have handled it that way, or you could have handled this better or done that. And just that constant, like you talked about, analyzing, that constant, like, how can I do better the next time type of mentality. And just really realizing that, okay, like, financial security is great, but I'm also not going to sell my soul for it. And I'm also not going to think that it's everything, because I could get the financial security and be a terrible human being. And like, you see it. The thing with you, like, I've talked so much dating and relationship stuff with you, which we'll have to save that probably for part 2, because you have a lot of brilliant info. I still to this day think of the Trader Joe's line you gave me. If a woman's in the parking, not to give away your sauce, but if a woman's in a parking lot with flowers, who's the lucky guy? Like, I never forgot that shit.
On my ass, man. But yeah,
Yeah, but it's like I've really realized, and it's really hit me as of late. Like, all right, like, what matters to me now is becoming the best possible person I can be. It's not a quote unquote, I guess some say version, or not me on paper. I don't care about the on paper part. I care about like who I actually am, and how are my relationships with actual people, and what is the energy I'm giving back to people into the world. That's more now where I'm at. And it's taken me a while to figure that out, to realize like, oh, that's it. That's what matters.
That's the bullseye.
The bullseye, like you said.
Redefine what that bullseye is. Make it yours. It's unique to you. My bullseye is unique to me. But if we don't know what our bullseye is, then we don't know what we're aiming for. And we also don't know when we've hit it. Because there's something to be said for hitting a bullseye. and allowing that to be okay, and allowing that mechanism of enough to kick in.
That's beautiful, man. That's beautiful. Now I wanted to, well, we might have to talk about it next time too, but I know you're working on your master's degree, right?
Yeah, working on my master's in my second year of the program right now. Pacifica Graduate Institute, depth-based program, counseling psychology is the degree. I'm working as a like a trainee therapist at a nonprofit in Woodland Hills. So I actually see clients in the capacity of a therapist all day, Monday, Tuesday.
Nice, man. Well, I think that's really cool that, you know, as much as you put into acting, that you're also putting into that side of yourself and opening up a brand new world to you as well to have for the rest of your life.
Yeah, you know, and I think of things similarly, you know, and again, one of the initial interests for both personal development, spirituality, therapy, and acting and story, well, came from mythology. And so that's why I like the depth-based program, because Carl Jung, you know, he looks at a lot of the great myths and how these metaphors are these story points are indeed metaphors for psychological development. But you know, I feel whether I'm stepping into a scene or whether I'm sitting with somebody doing a one-on-one session in the therapeutic space, all I'm really doing is creating a container for energy to shift, move, transfer, change. Right? There's like in a scene, you know, whatever, you know, you allow the words on the page to carry that energy. You allow yourself to be changed and moved through the give and take of this energy in the scene. You need to create a container to do that. When you know, in therapy, no matter what you're discussing, you know, emotional life is nothing but energy, right? And so we're creating a container for energy to shift, move, transform. You know, it's really the same practice in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and and that's one thing too. I need to get into therapy just to. I have so much value in talking things out
Yeah,
with
exactly.
someone, because you're in your head. When you're in your head's a great place, but it's also a dangerous place. And when you don't, there's been so many times where I think I know what's what, but then I'll like articulate an idea, and it'll come out of my mouth, and I'll say it to someone like, oh no, I don't think that, or oh, that's not what I thought it was.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
so that's a valuable thing you're providing for people.
I think so. It's challenging. It has its challenges.
Yeah.
But again, I think it's a part of it. It's a part of what I've defined for myself here, you know, with my own personal myth.
Awesome, man. Well,
Yeah.
Brian, we could keep going, but this time I think there's a lot for people to chew on. I'm actually excited to talk. I got some regular people that listen and we conversate. I'm like, yo, you're episode 32. Someone will be like, you need to check episode 32 with Brian Maierhofer, because it's going to be some fire. And
man, awesome. Well, I'm definitely going to be picking your brain here soon, because I'm going to be moving forward with my own podcast as well.
As you should.
Yeah, so I'm going to be getting you on there, no doubt, and also just I know you're, you know, much farther down the river than I am, so I'll be picking your brain on any insights or any ways to.
Happy to help you and support it, man. Yeah, I can just hit me up. I'll just tell you what I know.
Yeah, perfect.
You'll be phenomenal at it. If people want to follow you on social, is there a place where they can follow you or find you?
There is, yes. Brian Maierhofer on both Twitter and Instagram. My handle on Twitter is Hero Redefined. Actually just got a new Twitter today as I'm recommitting myself back to the coaching and sort of self-help landscape a little bit. But I'm out there on the spheres. So yeah, not too hard to find.
Cool, man. And I always give the guests the last word. It can be as deep as shallow or as shallow as you want. We've definitely gone in the deep end in this episode already, but it can be a book, a philosophy, an idea, like absolutely anything you want to leave us with as we close out here.
Yeah. I mean, I think the word is, you know, redefine, you know, and how do we redefine our concept of enough? And how do we redefine our concept of, fulfillment in a way that's empowering and in a way that is in alignment with our own version of life.
Awesome, man. Well, Brian, thanks for taking the time. Thanks for going deep with us. Really grateful to have met you, man, and to be continuing conversations with you. You're really an awesome dude, and I really respect and admire a lot of what you say. And I'm just really excited to see what path you go on. I really appreciate. I'm really hoping a lot of artists, especially, listen to this, and it's not to derail anyone, not to say give up your dreams and and focus on something else. It's not about that, but I think it's just that perspective of what do you really want out of life, and really asking yourself those questions. Because I know, I'll just speak for me personally. That's definitely, especially after talking with you now here, it really reminds me of I want the life that I want, not the life that I think I want, or I think that's going to please others, or for show. So. Thanks a lot, brother, man.
I appreciate it. I've had a blast. Thank you so much for bringing me on. I've had such a blast.
Sounds good, man. Stick around for just a sec. But Brian, thank you so much. We'll do it again.
Adios.